your inner compass, learning to trust yourself again. Hello, beautiful souls. It's Heidi here. Welcome to the very first episode of Intuition on Tap. I'm so excited to have you here. And whether you're brand new to tuning into your inner knowing or you've been riding the intuition train for years, well, this space is for you. So today we're going to be talking about your inner compass, how it works and why we often stop trusting it. And also I'm going to give you 3 practical tips of how you can come back home to yourself. So many of us, especially empaths and sensitive women, grew up trusting everyone else's opinions more than our own. We were taught to be nice, we were taught to keep the peace, we were taught to ignore that gut feeling or that inner knowing, our intuition, because it wasn't logical. I myself was definitely told to be a good girl, a nice girl, and what that meant was never speaking up for myself. I wonder if you had the same experience that I did. So we were told to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I was talking to one of my clients about this the other day, actually, because as women especially, we are told that we must first trust people until they do something to prove us wrong. But I want to flip that concept on its head because I think it's much healthier and way more aligned with our natural boundaries to not give others the benefit of the doubt, but in fact reserve our judgment as to whether we're going to give them access to ourselves, to our time, to our emotional labor, and to our energy. So once they've proven that they're safe, then perhaps we can slowly start to let them in and invest our time and our energy in building relationships, but not before. Because of this conditioning over time, we learn to doubt ourselves. But your intuition, well, the good news is it absolutely never left you. It's waiting for you to remember that it's safe to listen again and to trust yourself before you trust others. So I just want you to spend a few moments now reflecting on times in your life. And I invite you to think of a time when you didn't trust that inner knowing and to be really honest with yourself. I want you to ask yourself these questions without judgment, with what I like to call the compassionate observer. So you're observing your responses, you're being really honest with yourself, but you're not bringing your judgment or your self-blame or self-pity or anything like that. It's just really to be able to know yourself more deeply, to uncover, I guess, those patterns or those programs that you might not be aware of. I'm really passionate and a bit of a champion of getting people to self-reflect and look at those aspects of themselves that might be hiding in the dark, because that's where the real beauty and wisdom of our own self-actualization and self-realization, that's where it's hiding. So just coming back to that question, or thinking of a time that you didn't trust that inner knowing, how did it turn out for you? So were there repercussions? Was there a consequence that you had to face because you didn't listen to that intuition, because you gave someone else the benefit of the doubt, even though maybe your body was screaming at you, even though maybe intuitively you just felt something was off about that person? So how did it turn out? And the next question, and feel free to grab a journal if you want to write this down. What could you have done differently? So how could you have managed that, knowing what you know now, right? So we can't, go back and change the past, but knowing what you know now, how could you have managed that differently? What were the things that you perhaps could have said to stand up for yourself, to stand up for your energy? Was there a different way to handle that? Maybe make some notes about that so that if it happens again in the future, you can refer back to your notes and go, aha, that's what I could have done differently. And then the next question is, what was the moment you realized you'd been duped by this person or by this situation? And how did that realization feel for you? So often it can be a slow burn. And then one day we just wake up and go, oh, how did I get myself into this situation? But if you're really honest with yourself, oftentimes you will have known that something was cooking that wasn't really aligned with you or your energy. And if you're really honest with yourself and compassionate and kind to yourself, you'll be able to understand when that took place. This brings me to my next really important point here, because I feel that, I know what I know to be true, having worked with empaths and highly sensitive people for most of my professional career, is that, and being an empath myself, is that we tend to take on the responsibility for other people's behavior. It kind of is sometimes our automatic default position. So, it's kind of like our factory settings that we came with, and it can be very difficult to override those factory settings sometimes. So what I want to really make clear is the truth is that some people are master manipulators, and they have honed their skills over lifetimes, and they pretend to be something they are not. Now, specifically the people that I'm referring to is what I've kind of called the unholy trinity. And these people would be more commonly known as psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists. So if you have had the misfortune of having to deal with one of these characters, then I want you to really take on board that it's not your fault if they have created harm, pain, caused trauma in your life. It's not your fault. There's nothing probably that you could have done differently. And I would really encourage you not to blame yourself for not seeing the signs sooner. You have to understand, particularly when it comes to these types of people, they are very good, particularly sociopaths and psychopaths, they're very good at mimicking what a person is displaying. So they don't hold empathy and compassion naturally themselves, but they are very good at reflecting that back. So they tend to be attracted to empaths and highly sensitive people because in a way they can be easy targets, because sometimes we have difficulty, having strong boundaries and being able to say no. And we feel like we want to save the world, and we feel sorry for people. And so that's just an easy way for them to get in. But they also, like I said, they're very good at mimicking. All right. They're empaths can be chameleons, and we'll talk about this in other episodes later on down the track. Empaths are more like chameleons, whereas psychopaths and sociopaths are more like mimics. So they will actually reflect back to you what you're giving them. Narcissists as well. And this is why it can be so tricky when you're in relationship with them, because they like to gaslight you. They're very good at manipulating therapists even. And these are professionally trained people who again, have the education to deal with these types of personality disorders or disordered personalities, and yet they can be fooled. So I guess I'm saying this to reiterate my point that it's not your fault, right? You're never to blame for other people's behaviors. All you can do is take responsibility for yourself and how you show up for yourself and your life and the loved ones around you. So if you take nothing else from this podcast or from this episode, take this away from you. These people are masters at their craft, and they are masters at manipulating and playing others. And it's where they get their kind of life force from, where they get their energy from. So it's not your fault. You haven't done anything wrong. But what you can do is really start to build up that muscle of intuition, build up that inner compass to start believing yourself. Because honestly, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like if you are unsure about a situation, if you have that weird feeling, you know what I'm talking about, that you can't quite put your finger on, you can't quite verbalize, you don't have a word for it maybe, but something's off about a person, what's the worst thing that can happen if you actually listen to that? And you guard yourself and you stay a little bit distant, or you don't, continue the interaction with that person. Do you see what I mean? So if you're listening to your inner compass, the worst thing that can happen is, oh, okay, maybe you got it wrong. But so what? You're still safe. You're still, your well-being is intact. Your mental, emotional, and physical well-being are still intact. And maybe, you got it wrong, but that's okay too. Again, until these people prove themselves to you, that you are under no obligation to let them into your lives. And I think this message, as women, as empaths and highly sensitive people, is just really, really important. So now I want to share with you 3 practical tips of how you can implement your intuition, your inner compass in your life. Number 1, notice how your body reacts when something feels off. And then notice how your body reacts when something feels right. Okay. So like I said, I'm a big fan of journaling just to keep track of all of these different experiences and realizations and understandings, because sometimes we can become overwhelmed as highly sensitive people and we forget stuff. So it's always really good to go back and look at that journal and go, wow, did I write that? Did I actually say that? Did I feel that? And it's also really good if you have people who are attempting to gaslight you in your life as well. Number 2, start asking simple, intuitive questions daily. So this can be anything and regarding anything at all, as simple as what do I need today? Or what do I need to improve my well-being today? And that might be a rest day. That might be spending time with a loved one. That might be going out and treating yourself to a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, whatever you drink. That might be going for a walk in nature. That might be not working 10 hours. That might be, eating a nutritious meal, spending time with your animals, whatever it is that you need today. So I know in my experience and working with, clients for the last, very long time, number of decades, often we don't listen to what our body is telling us we need, what our intuitive sense is telling us what we need, because there's a couple of reasons for this. Number 1, we feel we don't deserve it. Number 2, we get conditioned by the constructs around us. So that could be our corporate role, and yes, I have worked in corporate, so I understand what that whole game is about. It could be that we have demands from a young family, from loved ones that we're taking care of. But again, it comes back to this idea of everything external to me is more important than myself. And as we progress, I just really want you to start slowly, incrementally flipping that on its head, because it's not being selfish. It's not being narcissistic to put yourself first. It's kind of like, we've all heard it before. When you're on an airplane, in an emergency, they say, put your mask on first, put your oxygen mask on first, and then help others. This is what I'm encouraging you to do. And so this will also help you to build your intuitive intelligence, your intuitive wisdom, by starting to ask yourself simple, intuitive questions daily. And number 3, create some space for quiet. So even 2 minutes of stillness can be enough and is a great place to start. If you don't have a reflection practice such as mindfulness, meditation, even walking out in nature, whatever it is for you to become centered, grounded, and present with yourself, without any distractions of social media, telephones, televisions, all of those kinds of things, then I would really encourage you to start if you don't already have one. And again, I know I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I can't meditate. I've tried it. It didn't work for me. My response is often, it's like building a muscle. You don't go to the gym and say, oh, well, I want, my goal is to run a marathon or a half marathon. And you run on the treadmill for 5 minutes and you're puffed. And then you throw up your hands in the air and say, well, I'm never going to be able to run a half marathon because I couldn't even run for 5 or 10 minutes. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, common sense would suggest that you need to train that muscle. You need to condition your body, condition yourself to be able to reach that half marathon. It's the same thing with activities such as mindfulness, meditation, etc. Because we are so overstimulated and our dopamine, our brains are kind of dopamine addicted and we're constantly looking for that dopamine hit. It can take a while for you to, detox from that. And so be gentle with yourself. Just start 2 minutes a day, even set your timer if you need to, and just sit and be present and follow your breath and just tune into your body. Just start there and then you can work your way up. And there's so many wonderful hypnosis and meditations and mindfulness practices that are readily available now, including ones that I've created myself. But, wherever you can find them, just start small and build up that practice. So just before we finish up, I wanted to thank you for being part of this first episode. And I want to lovingly and open-heartedly remind you that your inner compass is always working. And the more that you tune into it, the clearer it becomes. So again, thank you so much for joining me today. And next week, we're going to dive into what it really means to be an empath and how to stop feeling so drained all the time. But in the meantime, feel free to comment, to share this episode with anyone that you think might benefit from it, and certainly subscribe to my channel. And until next week, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and make sure that you focus on listening to that inner compass.